So why don't we start? I thought maybe we would start, Karen, with
Mhm.
you telling us a little bit about where you are in China. I sent a map
Okay.
out. I don't know if everybody saw the map. It looks like you're
Yes.
right in the middle of China.
Yeah. A middle and a little bit south. I'm in Chengdu, which is home of the Panda Research Base and known for hot pot, which is kind of like fondue. Um, very spicy. Yeah. That's like must be like older. I recognize absolutely no names other than Chengdu. So that
Oh,
must be an
really?
old. Yeah. Yeah.
Old
That
map?
must be old time. But yeah, that's where I am, kind of like in the center. It's a little bit south too. So it's in Sichuan province, so it's known for its Sichuan cuisine, very hot and spicy stuff, but you can get it bula, no spice, which is how I like it. And hot pot is kind of like fondue. You can get different kinds of sauces and then you dip things in and it cooks it in the oil and stuff. So it's known for those kind of things. So I'm in Chengdu is actually pretty laid back city. It's pretty liberal, um, and it's very pretty, very green. I live in there are rings in China, so there's a city center and then there's rings around, and the greater the number, the farther you live in the city center. And so I think I live in like the fifth or the sixth ring, which is where the school is. And so probably depending on the day, anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour to get to the city, depending on when you go. So I'm like in the suburban area. I guess I'd say it's kind of like the suburbs of it. So yeah.
When you say it's a liberal city, define what
It's
that
a
is.
it's a it's kind of a liberal city. There's things like, for example, there are certain things that are illegal here, such as celebrating different religions, homosexuality, that kind of thing. But here, even if it's not okay, people still they don't really say anything about it. And so things are allowed here, kind of allowed here that aren't maybe in other places as well. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm told. So,
How did you
and
pick that area?
why did I pick this area?
Yeah.
This is where the school was in Chengdu.
So,
So,
so
and I heard that it's supposed to be the happiest place in China. Um, and and actually, I mean, it is really lovely here. I think the weather is really nice most of the time, and people are very friendly. Sometimes they'll stare at you, because they're not sure what to make out of you. But there's plenty of Westerners, so it's not like I'd be the first person they'd see, but they're still very curious and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really nice here. Really nice here.
So I've got a set of questions, but I want to make sure other people get their questions in too.
Okay.
Um, uh, let's just start with some people don't even know why you're there. So why don't you kind of start with that?
So
And
I'm teaching at an international and bilingual school, third grade math and science. It's American curriculum. Um, and something I've always wanted to do, but the timing never seemed right. Um, and the timing now obviously is right. I'm I really wanted to go to the Middle East, but the problem is because of visa requirements, I'm too old. They won't hire people past a certain age. In fact, this is a 3-year contract. I probably won't stay 3 years, probably just do 2. But they had to double check to make sure that I'd be able to get a visa going into my 3rd year because I'd be over 60. So most of the staff is young. Most people don't do this at this age. So I could have probably birthed like 90% of the staff. But so yeah, so I do that. I teach. There's 2 sides of the school. There's a bilingual side and international side. And most of the students are local students. The only Westerners are the expat kids who are teachers there. The difference between the 2 schools is the bilingual students have Chinese passport, and the international students have a passport from somewhere else. So either their parents traveled somewhere to have their child and then came back to China, or they were in somewhere else and then they came back to China. If students go to this school, they have until 5th grade to leave the school and then go to a public school. If they stay in an international bilingual school, then they cannot go to a college or university in China. So the goal that the parents have is to send their children to a school in the US or into the UK or Australia or somewhere and gain knowledge there and then use back and use that if they choose.
How different is the curriculum from what you used to?
It's not that different. So the math, the science, we really don't even have a curriculum. We're just kind of winging it right now, which is very frustrating to all of us. The math is a curriculum, and actually I'm at it. It's called Basis International Bilingual School. Basis actually, the headquarters is in Phoenix. There are Basis schools in the United States, and the woman who started it had a granddaughter who was in somewhere in Eastern Europe in kindergarten, started as a kindergarten, and was unhappy with the public schools and started this school. And it has grown from that. So we have early childhood starting at 3 years old through, right now it's through 9th grade, because this is a newly built school. Next year it'll be 10th grade, and then they'll keep adding until they go. Some kids board there. So yeah, it's American curriculum. So they do have Chinese class. And then the kids on the bilingual side, they have double the Chinese class, and they also have a morality class as well. The students on the bilingual, so there's common areas like the gym and specials room and where they eat and playgrounds. But if we want to join, like for 3rd grade classes, if we want to join them to do one activity, the bilingual kids cannot come to the international side. So we have to take the international kids and group the bilingual side. So there's all these different rules. Our immediate supervisors are Western. Our head of school actually is from Idaho, lived in Florida for a little while. Head of primaries like from the UK, vice head of primaries from where's she? Oh, Canada. We have another head of like early childhood from South Africa. So, but they only have so much control. And so there's the powers at the top, because in order to have a school like this in China, they have to partner with the Chinese Board of Education, and they have the final say. And sometimes it can be very frustrating, the decisions that they make. And our leaders' hands are tied sometimes. But so there's some things that are frustrating, but otherwise, I can teach just like I did here in Zion. I don't have to use any kind of Chinese method or anything like that. And it's very different than the Chinese public school. From class sizes to how it's taught, the curriculum, everything.
What is your class size?
Well, it's very small now. We have 9 in one and 13 in another, but they can go up to 25. They max out at 25. Okay. So a regular, like here in the US, very similar to that, they'll max out.
Other people I want to give a chance to ask questions? Otherwise, I'll keep going. Have you had a chance that you mentioned a little bit early on about traveling outside the city to different parts of China? Have you had a chance to travel China and you see differences in different areas?
I've spent when I was in China before, I was in several areas in Jiangsu province, which is east, and Shanghai, and also Beijing. Sanya is Hainan province, and that's that southern island, very tropical, very beautiful beach weather and everything. I haven't had a chance to travel to a lot of other places just because it wasn't until right before winter break when China did a total 360 in like from one day to the next on lifting COVID restrictions. So 1 week we're testing every day, and all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. No more testing. Testing sites are shut down. And so then Chinese New Year, winter break, I went to Sanya. Chinese New Year, I came home because in end of October, my mom had a stroke and she's doing okay, but I wanted to come home Chinese New Year just to kind of see for myself, because that was going to determine if I even stayed another year after this, or if I was going to go home. And and then we had a spring break, and so I went with a couple to Vietnam. So I haven't had a real chance, but there's some places that I'd like to go. So now that, it's very much pre-COVID life here. So they took away all the testing you have to do. Well, you're supposed to do your own tests, but they don't really check. So they took away all the testing and the restrictions and things like that. So next year, I'm hoping to go to a couple other provinces and see more of China.
So were you testing in the school?
Oh, we were testing in the school. We were testing, they had tests. We'd go to the park to test. Sometimes we tested every third day. Sometimes we tested every day. It really depended. There was, you cannot live without your cell phones here, at least independently. And it's not because, like kids are addicted to video game stuff. It has nothing to do with, everything is on either what's called WeChat or Alipay. And WeChat is the one that most people have. It's how you pay your bills. It's how you pay at the supermarket. It's how you order food. It's how you get around, because you order DiDis, which are Chinese Ubers or taxis. When you they had to scan it when you were getting COVID tested, and you had to show a green code to get into stores, to get into government buildings. I mean, you could not live without it. If your battery was about to die, you panicked. So very, very dependent on that. Now that we don't have to do the green code or the travel code when, because COVID is gone, the testing, stuff like that. It's just about, paying for things and getting around, things like that. So
what did they tell you when they dropped the COVID, like hot potato the next day?
they just say no more testing. That's it. It's just, everything's just, they started to reduce the quarantine. When I went through quarantine, it was 10 days. Then they reduced it. And then we kind of had a feeling they were talking about getting rid of it around Chinese New Year. And then they just, I don't know what it was, but the minute they dropped all the regulations, everyone got sick. So the week before winter break, and the rest of the world knows that you cannot, it's not going to not happen. It's going to happen. Just get through it. Right. And so the week before winter break, we ended up going online for a few days because there weren't enough staff to teach the few kids that were actually even showing up, because everyone got sick, everyone. So, which was fine. And now it's kind of like, it's just no big deal.
Are they vaccinating people?
People have gotten vaccinated. The elderly, especially out in the country, were the ones that were resistant to it. And someone told me that it's kind of like, well, the government was going to take care of them. They were just going to keep everyone away and have these strict regulations. So why do they need to? So I have no idea if people are getting vaccinated or not. It seems like the Chinese vaccines are not as effective as the ones we have in the Western world. But even those people who got not Moderna, what's the other one? Pfizer, some of them got very sick, but it just like in the States, some people get really sick, some people don't. I had it the December before, like a year before when I was still at home. So I didn't get it again. But it was interesting though, because I can now say that I actually experienced China's COVID regulations. And it really, if I think about it, it's kind of fascinating. In fact, we used to go to the park, walk to the park, which is a little over a mile from where I lived, my first place. And it was fine. It was kind of like a social thing you did with your friends or the people you know. And it was a destination to walk to. And it just became kind of like not a big deal. And they batch test in groups of 10. So all of us expats, if we were the first one in line for the next batch, we got to hold the tube. We all took selfies with the tube holding it. It was, you just it just became a lighthearted thing, not a big deal. You got tired of it, but it was like, what are you going to do? So, but it is interesting because some people here think that COVID started in the US,
Oh, interesting.
actually. Yeah, because someone was talking about someone from New Zealand. He's also new to China. He was talking to his friends who are local Chinese, and he was telling them about how he wants to go to Wuhan. And they didn't understand why. And he's like, well, don't you want to go to ground zero? They're like, what are you talking about? So he said something about it. He said, well, no, it started in the US. We have friends in the US who, they think they had COVID before it even came out. But of course, you don't think about the back and forth travel. And because I know someone who possibly had it before we even knew what it was. But they don't think of the back and forth travel. And so I said to him, I said, well, did you say something to him? He goes, no, the rest of the world knows the truth. So why even bother arguing? You can't convince. So yeah, so I found that really interesting as well. So
Linda, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, just wondering about the political communism part. Do you feel like you're in a communist country? Are there like pictures of leaders and that kind of thing?
I think there's a statue of Mao somewhere, but no. We have an expat TV box which has English with English stuff on it, and so I can get CNN and Fox and BBC World and Al Jazeera, and I can get some local news channels that are from San Francisco Bay Area. And if I didn't watch any of that, I would have no idea what's going on. For probably a couple reasons. One, the news would be in Chinese. Two, it's probably not discussed. And people just don't talk politics here. I mean, if they are, it's in Chinese, but I think people don't, because I think there's still the fear that the government is watching and hearing everything. So I'm so far removed from politics, it's actually wonderful. I don't miss it at all. It really is nice to not have to wake up and see all the stuff going on in the world that I really am tired of hearing about. So I did ask, so we have in the classrooms, there's a Chinese teacher and a Western teacher. And I did have a talk with one of them because I had some questions, and I asked, how do you like, because not everyone is part of the party. If you work in a government office or a public school, then you have to state that you will be part of the Communist Party. Otherwise, you don't have to. And so I asked, how do you decide this? Do you like sign something? And so the two that I work with are not part of the party. They've chosen not to be part of the party. They still get whatever benefits are there. But basically what happens is if there's something a meeting or something that's going on that is supporting the party, you just don't go, you don't say anything. That's it. So not everyone is part of the party. So, and I didn't realize that, and I didn't know how that worked.
So they may not have, without the box that you have, they might not even know what's going on in Ukraine, for example, or what.
Yeah, I don't know what they watch because there's TV and it's in Chinese, so I don't know what they watch. But some of them do know what's going on, because in order to get certain news sites and other things, you have to have a VPN. Otherwise, a lot is blocked. So, and a lot of the younger educated Chinese, they kind of know what's going on in the world. Because they'll have VPNs and they'll listen to people, and especially the ones that speak English. The Chinese teachers, the ones who teach Chinese don't, but the ones that work in the classrooms with us do speak English. And so they talk to us about what's going on, and they want to learn. And a lot of them have been to the US or have been to Australia or the UK and have been educated in other places as well. Some not, some have. So, but if you're young, educated people kind of know that things aren't always as they appear. And really, it's like I walk around here and it's just like regular life. It's really pleasant. It's very safe, very safe. In fact, there's there's people who are raising their kids internationally, and I wish I would have wanted to do this when my kids were younger, because I would have wanted to do this. I would have wanted to go different and raise them internationally, because it's just amazing. But some of them who are originally from, Canada or the US are like, and they've been here for a while, especially before COVID, because it was hard to go back. They're like, I don't want to put my kids in American school with all the shootings going on. So there is a couple that are going to go back at some point, but they'll go to a basic school, they'll go to a private school. So, yeah. And so, it's funny too, because, to put it in perspective, I have a friend back home. He lives in Tennessee. And right before COVID restrictions were down, there was all the protests going on, which is unheard of in China, but there were, and you may have seen it on the news. And places like Beijing and some other places, I guess, got what I don't know. It looked violent, but compared to our protests, it's not violent. But there was some pushing going on, something that you normally don't see. And he sent me a message asking, "Oh, I saw that there are protests going on. Are you safe?" And in Chengdu, there were some, I guess, in the city, but it was very mild. And I said to him, I said, I'm safe. There's not much going on here, and I'm about 1,000 miles from Beijing, so it's not affecting me at all. 2 days later, I'm watching the news, and there's a mass shooting in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I could have said to him, "Ed, are you okay?" Even though he's in Tennessee, there was a shooting in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we live in a country where there's a lot of violence going on, and we kind of become numb to it. We know it's there. We know it's wrong. We want to fix it. But it's kind of like, I once met, Stephanie and I were on a cruise in 2019. We were coming back from an excursion. We met a couple who was from Atlanta. And this is in our own country. And we said, okay, we're from Chicago. And the husband's like, "Oh, I wouldn't go to Chicago. Too many shootings there." And the wife is like, "Shh, stop. And I'm like, I grew up in the Chicago area. I have never felt unsafe. You know where to go, where not to go. But it's kind of like, I would feel safer sending my child to China than sending them to the United States, because of everything going on. So it's a lot of people. There were a few people that were not happy about me coming here. We're worried about what could happen with Taiwan. And my response was, yeah, if something terrible happened like that, there was a war, it was going to affect us, or they didn't want us here anymore, they would tell us to leave. They would get rid of all of us, and that would be fine. But I can't live my life based on what ifs. So I'm going to do it. And I feel very safe here. I feel very removed from the politics. And I'm sure there's stuff going on. I mean, I do see what's going on with Taiwan and with everything else with China, what's going on with our countries and all that kind of stuff. It's noticeable when you leave the country and you come back in, because if you have a US passport, coming back Chinese New Year, I got called into the interrogation room. All of us who had US passports were called into that room, no matter where we were coming from, and questioned about why we were there. And I have a visa, and I have a 2-year residency permit. So obviously their government thought I was okay enough to have that, but they still questioned it. And then when I came back from Vietnam, the 2 people I was with are from the UK. They had a few questions, but nothing major. But I was like grilled on things that have nothing to do with and we all know it's because of what's going on between the United States and China now.
Yeah.
So
you are aware of that there's tension between the two.
Well, I'm aware of it just because I see it on the news.
Right.
I'll turn on the news just to see what's going on for a little while, once in a while. But when that happened to me, I didn't understand why. And then when everyone who came back after Chinese New Year, who had a US passport that happened to, were like, okay. I mean, our countries never got along, but it's really bad now. And I don't know if it's because of social media showing us more, or now with all the technology and drones and all this kind of stuff, more things can happen. So yeah, so I know there's tension. I know there's stuff going on, but being here, if I didn't watch the news, I wouldn't know, because you don't feel it, except for things like that.
Right. Other people, I'll back up for a minute. what are we forgetting to ask you about living abroad and living in China? I mean,
It is just really an amazing opportunity. I know you were here a long time ago, Esther, and I think the China I'm living in is very different from when you were here. But it's just an amazing experience. I'm trying to learn the language. It's not easy, but I am taking lessons and starting to recognize some words and phrases. So I'm doing that. Do you have something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the expense? How is it more expensive there or is it less expensive? Really?
Every week I get a massage and a facial and a hair treatment.
oh, wow.
Week?
Or maybe the total for the maybe, well, I just started the hair treatment because the water here is very hard. And so I tried it. So I think it's the equivalent of about $45 a week. Very inexpensive. I took a DD from, I don't know, somewhere. And the distance was about, I told Stephanie, and the distance was from like where she lives, Marine Drive, to the train station. It cost me maybe, I don't know, $5. She said that would have costed her $30, something like that. The food, if you purchase Western food at the supermarket or you order it, it's more expensive. But if you but most of the groceries and stuff, it's well, I mean, eggs are a lot, but not like in the States. It's still less expensive overall. Utilities, oh my gosh, I probably, I still have my phone at home. I think I'm paying $134 because I have the international plan a month. Here, I think the phone is about $15 a month.
Wow.
I mean, so it's definitely a lot less.
Would that be an international plan though?
I have one phone with 2 lines on it. So I have my American phone is an eSIM card, and I decided to add the international plan to it because I didn't know what to expect. And then I have my Chinese line, which is a regular SIM card on my phone as well. So so that way, yeah, because I needed that so I could open up a bank account here, and that kind of stuff. So the cost of living is a lot less. So people who are going home this summer, a lot of people are, because they haven't been home since before COVID, are going to have sticker shock. And I think they know it's going to be expensive, but they don't know. It's going to be really different. The life is going to be really different when they go home. So
Are
yeah.
wages comparable?
Are what?
Are your wages comparable, salaries?
So mine, I mean, I was making more in the States just because I hadn't had a lot of years in, but my wages are pretty good. The Westerners make more than the local Chinese.
What I wondered, yeah.
And that's because they fit in their salary with the economy, I believe. And so they're probably, compared to other teachers in public schools and other workers, are probably making a pretty good salary. I don't know what it is because people don't really talk about it. So for me, I'm in a really good situation because I'm not really, I wouldn't do this for no money, but I'm not really in it for the money because I have my pension coming in. So I send 80% home. And so I could live off of maybe about, I don't know, 900, 1,000 a month, because they cover most of my housing.
Oh.
And I have to pay a little bit extra because it costs a little bit more. So they cover most of my housing, and I pay utilities. They provide transportation to school and from school unless I want to take a DD. And there's, well, there is food at school, but I cook my own because I prefer to know what's in my, well, I gain too much weight. I gain too much weight when I eat their food because, and you don't know what it's going to be from day to day. And sometimes when you see it, you're not even sure what it is. They try to do some Western stuff, and actually they're successful with some of it, the school. But there are some really nice Western restaurants here. There's a Shake Shack here. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's an American thing. They're opening up Cheesecake Factory. There's of course Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC. There's some barbecue places. So there's quite a bit of Western food here now.
Yeah.
Very different than when you were here before.
Yeah, we were there in '98, and it was just starting. There was McDonald's and a few other things, but we saw a lot of building going on, which you're now, it fully built probably.
Yeah, there's still a lot of building going on. Where I was living before, it was that there was building going on. Not really in the city, but out in the suburban areas. So
We were struck by how big the small towns were. I mean, the small towns were millions of people.
yeah, our city has about 20 million. And then when we were in Binhai in Jiangsu province back several years ago, it was considered a small city of like 10 million, something like that. I mean, it was it's very, very big. That's why everyone lives in apartments. Their homes are apartments or condos or whatever. I mean, they'd be like condos, but they're apartments. So a lot of them will own different apartments and they'll rent them out, or they just live in them. You don't have single family houses here. It's all apartments.
Yeah.
So they build up lots of people, lots of traffic.
We visited some folks when we were there that lived in quote unquote an apartment, but I think I can't remember if they had 2 kids or whatever.
No,
And it was very small for even with the one child. It was we would not live in it here in the States.
Yeah, some are very small, some are bigger. Mine has 4 bedrooms. One is storage, one is for my bicycle that I got, and one is an office. I have 2 baths, a small kitchen, nice living area. We have laundry is like a little area outside. I mean, it is, this apartment is beautiful. I mean, it really is. A lot of us live in this community, so it's huge. I don't know what the square footage is. They go in meters and stuff like that. So I haven't really figured that out, but.
Joan, you have a question.
I have 3 questions, if I'm permitted 3 questions.
Of course.
One has to do with censorship, one has to do with travel between provinces, and one has to do with mandatory retirement. So I'll start with the first, mandatory retirement, because I was very interested in that when I was in China, that because there's such a huge population, that there was a mandatory retirement age. I was given a tour at the university by a doctor who was 55 years old and was very unhappy because she had just been forced to retire to make room for more doctors coming into the system. And she was conducting tours for foreign visitors, and that's her only involvement with healthcare.
Yeah, I remember hearing that when I was in China before. I haven't talked about it with anyone now, but I remember 55 was what I was 50 or 55 was what I was told was the age, at least for teachers. I don't know about other professions. So that is a real thing. I just don't know if that still is, if it's everywhere. So I'm not sure about that.
Yep. I thought it was a national policy, but I don't, she was 55.
Yeah, it might be, I don't know.
The other question I had was travel between provinces. When I was there, I was not allowed to travel unaccompanied between provinces as a foreign visitor.
We can travel. Yeah, we can travel now between provinces. There's the only place that you have to be with a tour is up in the Northwest, where they have that Muslim population. Okay. I know someone who went there. You can only go with a tour. There's police all over the place. And she told me that when they were flying over probably a camp or whatever it was, they had to close their windows. So that would be one place where, and they were checking, you have to carry your passport because they were checking that. And the tour guides have to, you know, show that. So unless it's a situation like that, there really is no issue traveling from province to province, especially now that COVID is gone. So
I wasn't with a tour, but I was assigned minders, people who accompanied me province to province
Right.
because I was not allowed to.
yeah, very easy to travel now. Very easy to
Good.
travel.
I'm glad to hear that. The third
Mhm.
question I had, if I can read it. Oh, it had to do with has to do with censorship and maybe has to do with your curriculum a little bit. I gave a speech to a university there, and I had to mail my speech a month ahead. They said so they could translate it, but they also wanted to review the content. And I'm wondering if you are free to if your curriculum is reviewed in some way, or if you are scrutinized in a way that would be different than my
There,
experience.
I know that there's some curriculum you cannot get to China. That I know for sure. In the international side, there's no issues. The bilingual side, I was told in the beginning of the year that I'm not allowed to send the math book home. However, I don't follow that. The other thing, there may be some books that may or may not be allowed. There are conversations you can't have with students. If you have a map, it cannot have, the map can show Taiwan, but it cannot say Taiwan. Especially if it's on the bilingual side. So, and I do know that one of the 8th, 9th grade English teachers was having, you know, a conversation with kids, and he was basically talking about, you know, what is power? And it had nothing to do with politics, just power in general. And the students said they could not talk about that because the government might be listening. So there's what people who are teaching humanities have had to do is they check with the Chinese teachers and say, is this okay to talk about or to read about, and so on. So that's the only kind of censorship that I'm aware of.
And thank you very much. I really appreciate your perspective.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, it's different for me as an expat than it is as a Chinese person. Obviously my views are very different, and my experience and how I'm treated is a little bit different probably. And not knowing the language, not being able to hear conversations. I really want to learn the language so I can actually talk to, you know, the security officer at my gate, or the shop owners, or I don't know, the custodians at the school, or just the regular people. I mean, I went into a store the other day and actually understood what she was asking me, and I actually was able to answer in Chinese, which is very little, nothing impressive, believe me. She was asking me if I spoke Chinese, and I said just a little. And then I think she was asking me if I lived here, and I shook my head and I said I was a teacher, and that's where it ends. that's where it ended. But it was kind of nice. I was able to understand some, so little by little. But I really want to talk to the regular people. So yeah. So, and then I could learn more, but I don't know if that'll happen by the time I leave. But we're trying as best as I can. You know, because at this age, I just don't retain things like I used to. I just don't. So it doesn't go in and stick as easily as it used to. So, and I think the age restrictions are not for Westerners unless, like for me, I think you can be a Western and work up to 65, depending on your education and depending on what your job is. But if I were to apply for a job at my age now, I'm 60 now. If I were to apply for a job now here, I might not get accepted. You know, but I've got a doctorate, and that's the thing that really surprises me is parents and kids. They find that so impressive. You're everything if you have a doctorate, and for me, it's like, you know, I took some more classes. That's about it. It's not, but that's everything. They put a lot of emphasis on that.
I think
So,
I think it's why I was invited to speak in an unusual environment. But the woman who was accompanying me was a Chinese doctor, and it was her, and she was the one who was expressing her discontent with
yeah,
the mandatory retirement. And I thought, my gosh, our young people spend so much time in medical school. They're 30 before they even get out in practice, and it's not a very long career if you have to retire. But
well, I think their view of people who are older, and I wouldn't even say old, are that it's our time to rest and to take care of ourselves and take it easy. I'm taking a dance class, and the person who gave me a massage says, "Oh no, you're too old." I said, "No, not too old." So it's kind of like your bones get brittle when you're 60 or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I don't think they think like back in the States, you got people who are exercising and people who are older who are running and biking and doing all this stuff. And it's almost like they think, no, 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 can't do that. You're too old. You'll hurt your bones. You'll hurt yourself. So I think it's a different view of the elderly. And it's too bad because you've got older people who can still contribute to education and everything else, and probably better than some of the younger people because of the experience. So,
What's transportation like in China? I mean, we see them building roads all over the world. Are there roads and railroads and
their
transportation?
infrastructure is top notch. They have lots of roads, amazing. And there are a lot of people who drive cars. They'll drive. Bicycles are not as much anymore as they used to be. Depending on where you are, if you're closer to the city, a lot of them will have e-bikes because traffic is ridiculous. But a lot of them will call a taxi or a Didi because of that. The roads are not real wide though. So like, how like going into the city of Chicago, there's like 5-lane highways, roads just to get to the city because of all the traffic. Here they don't have that. They also, it's almost like I would never drive a car here because it's almost like the bigger you are, the more rights you have. So the bigger the vehicle, so the buses. And so it's almost like an unspoken rule that if you're trying to merge in, you don't look to see if someone's behind you, you just merge. And then the person behind you just kind of lets you in. But you really, and changing lanes and don't even stay in lanes. And and I think it's got to be an Asian thing because even an African thing too, it's like lanes are just a suggestion, Western and Eastern. Traffic is just ridiculous. I would never drive here. In fact, my bicycle, I like to go early so I don't have to drive too much in traffic to get to where I'm going. So, because it can be kind of scary.
I just remember in Shanghai, I think it was, we were in a car we were not driving, but we got to this intersection and it was like total chaos. They didn't have a stop sign. They didn't have a stop light. It just like whoever got there first, you were able to get through. I mean,
there's
stoplights,
stoplights.
but it was just, I couldn't believe the congestion and how they were able to get around.
Yeah, there are stoplights here. Your cars pretty much follow the rules. Your e-bikes don't necessarily follow the rule. And then the way they park here too, they park in places they shouldn't. So trying to get through the street is and then people will just stop anywhere. I sit outside, I watch it because I'm right by an intersection, and I just laugh. It's just kind of comical. Right. But it wasn't when I went to Vietnam though. I was in Hanoi and we were in Old Town, and that was funny because there was one area where there were a lot of restaurants and bars, and all the restaurants, all the established had their chairs out and they were pushing them into the street. So you had buses and cars and bikes and all these pedestrians trying to get through this little narrow area because people were sitting there. Then all of a sudden, all the restaurant owners are pulling all their chairs and telling their customers to get in. And I said to the couple I was with, I'll bet the police are coming. When you know it, the police come and they sit there for about 20 minutes. Everyone's, the streets wide, people can get through. 20 minutes later, the police roll, no sooner are the back tires out of that intersection, all the chairs come back out again. And it was like watching a comedy show. It was hilarious. So I don't know. But actually it's there's stoplights, the roads are very nice. It's very clean. Where I am, it's very clean. A lot of greenery, lots of flowers. It's a very beautiful city, very beautiful area.
Do you see much poverty?
No, I'm sure there is, but you don't see people begging on the streets. And it's funny because I was talking to one of the Chinese teachers, and we were talking, I don't remember what we were talking about, because it's not a very accessible city for handicap. But you don't see handicapped people either. Sometimes you'll see a couple people with, I've seen a couple people here, but she was even saying, I know there's handicapped people, I just don't know where they are. So you don't even really see handicapped people. So I don't know what that's about. That would be something maybe next year I'll explore, because I'm curious about that. They don't even have a lot of special education. So I'm not sure what happens to those kids. I do know that if you're in the public school, in ninth grade, you take a test, and it kind of determines your path, whether you go into the good high schools and get the best college education, or whether you're going into a high school that's more going to gear you towards a trade. And then there's a very serious test you take during your senior year that you spend your all your years of high school studying for, basically, that tells what kind of college you'll get into. A lot of pressure, Kids are put a lot of pressure. What we're also finding is, because in the public school, they rank kids, and everyone knows once a month where all the kids rank with each other. So there's WeChat groups where the parents are talking about who's smarter than who. And so when we have parent teacher conferences, we have parents say, where does my child rank in class? And we say, no, we won't do that. We won't tell you. We don't rank the kids that way. So it's a very different view. Chinese parents have a very different view of education than Western. In fact, started reading a book called The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. And it's written by actually a woman from China who married a Jewish guy. And, they're blending the family. They're living in the States, and she still has that Chinese mother where she's very strict about learning and filling up their time with music lessons and all that kind of stuff. And just a very different view of education. So we're finding we have to tell them time and again that we don't rank them. We just, it's where they are. We watch them grow. And, because I've had parents, 92%, why didn't you get the 100? Someone's 89%, what happened? He was an A before, 89.9%, things like that. So it's kind of interesting too. So I don't know what else you would like to know, what else I can share with you.
Is there anything you miss about the US?
Besides the people, besides my family and friends and everything. I miss being able to get in a car and driving. I miss knowing where to go and being able to understand the language. Sometimes I'll miss some food. When I came home, I brought back Garrett's popcorn for some people. I brought that, and some of the food. But other than that, the US is still home to me. It's always going to be home. And so I'll very happily come home when it's my time. Really mostly people. Yeah. In the beginning, it was like a roller coaster. Adjusting was hard, but I found that it went in waves, and it must have been very common because everyone who was new to China, who I was hanging out with, and they're all like Justin and Stephanie's age, by the way, except for a couple of the couples. But they were going through the same exact thing I was at around the same time I was going through. So it was nice to be able to share that. But now I'm kind of like adjusted. I'm coming home June 30th, and then I'll go back August 13th. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, I do talk to the grandkids on FaceTime, but it's not the same. For those of you who are grandparents, you know that. So that'll be nice to see them and everyone else, and Jim, and then my parents, of course. And holidays and that kind of stuff. In the beginning, that was hard. There's a Chabad here.
Really?
And actually Rivki knows the Rebbitzin, because I had looked it up before I came here, and Rivki knew who she was, and they connected. They were, when I first went to Chabad the first time, they weren't here. The rabbi and Rebbitzin weren't here because they were in the States. She was pregnant, and I don't know, other family things. The last couple times I went, like I went for a Seder. I went for Hanukkah, I went for a Seder. Tomorrow night I'm going to for Lag BaOmer. I'm gonna go there for the barbecue and the bonfire. So there's a huge Israeli population. I think the rabbi is Israeli. There's an Israeli consulate here. So most of the people who go are Israeli. There used to be a lot of Americans before COVID, but then, you know, when we closed their Chinese consulate in Texas, they decided to close the US consulate in Chengdu. So because of COVID and because of that, a lot of the Americans left. So it's mostly Israelis that are there, but I've met a few Americans as well. We're married to Israelis. But nice people. There's some little kids there. I got my baby fix, got to hold one. So that was a good thing. So I'll go there tomorrow night. So that's nice to have that to go to as well. It's a little far, so I won't go on a Friday night, because traffic on a Friday night going closer to the city is really hard. But other than that, yeah, so that's a good thing too.
And so when you come back, what will you miss about China?
My apartment, I don't know, just the experience I'm having, some of the people. It's just like my home away from home. It's not my real home. When I came home Chinese New Year, I was actually looking forward to coming back to China. You know, I think, you know, guns are illegal here. Police do not carry guns. And so I don't wake up hearing about shootings every morning. When I came home the first time, that I woke up in the morning, actually I woke up in the morning, the first thing I heard on the news was carjackings. It was about carjackings. So I won't, the thing that I will miss about China is I can wake up in the morning and I don't have politics thrown in my face, and I don't have shootings and all this stuff, all the dangerous stuff going on in the States in my face. So I don't mind watching. I can pick and choose when I want to watch the news. And I guess I could do that at home, but it's just there. It's just always there. So the safety of China is, but I never felt unsafe in the US either. But those would be the things that maybe I would miss about not being here. So, and the school is beautiful. It's huge. Their schools are like mini college campuses. So it's really nice too. Oh, the prices, I'm going to miss the prices here. Cost of living, cheaper. So
Yeah,
I heard about the gas prices out there.
What about the bathroom situations? What are the bathrooms like?
So in my apartment, it's Western. In a lot of the restaurants I go to, it's Western. Shopping malls, they have, they call them handicap stalls for the Western toilets. But when I first came to China several years ago, I had heard about the squat toilets or whatever they're called. And I actually YouTubed how to use one, because I had never heard of that before. So it's not terrible. Usually they're clean. You get used to it. It's not a big deal, but most of the time it's Western. Schools, all Western. So maybe if I was out in the country somewhere, it'd be different. When I was in China before, there were more of those kind of toilets, especially if you stopped at a rest stop. When we've traveled in this province and we've stopped at rest stops, then you have to use those toilets, unless there's a handicapped one, which is the Western. So
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm just wondering about healthcare.
Oh, we have, so we have, through our school, we have a healthcare plan. And so I went for a physical and I didn't know what to expect. But it's very, where we go, I can't speak for where the regular public goes. Where we go, it's very westernized. And I absolutely loved every doctor I saw. The person, and what's nice too, through WeChat, if I want to make an appointment for anything, dental, medical, whatever, I send her a message and she sets it up for me. And it's easy to get an appointment. You don't have to wait very long. So like I told her, I want to go to the dentist beginning of June. And so 2 weeks before she'll set that up because they don't have the schedule out yet. So, and the communication is good. I had some tests done. There were a couple things that came back a little iffy. So I went in, they talked about it, whatever. And it was nothing major. I had to take some medication for a stomach infection that I guess it's very common here because of food sharing with chopsticks. And so they gave me the medication, and then I sent a message to my doctor back in the States explaining everything. And she said, oh, you must have this. It's very common in China, because it said exactly what the doctor here said. And we always treat it this way. And so everything they would do back in the States, they would do here, except there's one medication she wasn't sure about, but she said, I'm sure it's fine. So yeah, the medical care that we have here, what's set up is amazing. It's very good.
Wow.
They keep you in the hospital longer. Like someone here, one of the teachers, her husband is here with her, and he broke his foot or his ankle, his knee, I don't know, something. And so he was in the hospital, and they keep you in the hospital a long time. The other thing that she said was they're not really good about giving pain medication. And so he had to go without pain medication for a few hours until they were able to get him into surgery. So that's something that I would not be happy about. But just your preventative care and stuff, it's fine. A lot of people, a lot of expats here have babies here, and it's fine. So.
Have you been to the Panda Research Center? Aren't you in the city where?
Yeah, I did visit the Panda research base, and the pandas, they have a couple red pandas, and then they have the other pandas, and they're really cute and eating their bamboo. And, it's kind of like a panda zoo, really what it is.
Yeah.
They're all in big, but big areas that they have, but it's just like a panda zoo. You can go there and you can actually have an experience where you go behind and feed the pandas and everything. But I don't know if it's a COVID thing, but then you have to have a medical checkup and things like that. And it's costly, so I haven't done that yet. So maybe next year. But there's actually 2 bases. I was at one of them. I don't know what the difference is between the 2. So yeah. Yeah.
This has been great fun, Karen. Even having been there a number of years ago, I've learned a lot from what you're,
Change.
telling us. Anybody else have any last minute questions? Or Karen, do you have any last minute comments? We don't want to, I don't know how many of you know, this is about 11 o'clock at night for Karen.
Oh, yeah. It is 11 o'clock, isn't it? I have my computer from home still has Chicago time on it. So I'm looking at that. I didn't look at anything else. No, I don't. I thank you everyone for joining. I think it's a good idea, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. I mean, there is stuff going on for sure. China is not transparent. Things are blocked. That is true, but it's not unsafe at all. It really isn't. It's definitely very safe. And, I'm not someone that's going to go and go to an area where it's more political and start ranting and raving and protesting and things like that. You just know, where to draw the line. You just don't do that. So yeah.
Well, on behalf of all of us, thanks, Karen. I really appreciate this. We all appreciate this.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
So great decisions. People stay on. We have to make a decision about our next date and topic. Otherwise, Karen, we'll let you go get to sleep. So you
Okay. If anyone has any Yeah, if anyone has
Thank-
any questions, feel free to email me or whatever, and I can always find an answer if I don't know it. So
Thank
well, have a
you.
good day.
Thanks,
you.
Enjoyed
thanks,
it very
Karen.
much. Thank you.
This was
Bye-bye.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See ya.
Bye-bye.